Tasha Keeney from ARK Invest was interviewed recently, and she explained their brand new report where they project Tesla stock to hit $2,600 by 2029. She says Tesla's plans to convert their current vehicle fleet, including leased cars, into robotaxis within the next 1 to 2 years. She also pointed out that despite China's advanced testing and autonomous technology, Tesla is ready to expand robotaxi deployment worldwide. We're going to go through some video of Tasha Keeney being interviewed by CNBC today, and we're going to go through some of their report that they shared with us last week. So I've got Nick Gibbs joining us. He's a host of his own YouTube channel called Investing Against the Grain. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this is something that you have been very closely following, both FSD progress. You've just been studying this left, right, and center for the last year. And then now ARK Invest, you've been following them as well. So let's watch this video, and I'm going to pause it halfway through. It's a 4-minute clip of Tasha Keeney, and somewhere there I'll pause and we'll get your feedback on it.
Sounds good.
90% of the value of Tesla could be attributed to robotaxis in 2029. This will totally transform the business model from essentially one-off vehicle sales with a little bit of software to a recurring revenue stream. And we think it'll have very attractive margins. So autonomous cars will not only change how you and I get around, they'll be so much safer, but they'll also be quite profitable to Tesla and very meaningful for shareholders.
So Tasha, by 2029, $2,600 a share, that's 4 years from now. From where we are now, I mean, a lot's going to have to happen, right? And I got to wonder, just in terms of scaling and also manufacturing, they have this new system that they, I think, tried to implement, right, which is more unibody, fewer parts, so faster, cheaper, et cetera. They've abandoned that, apparently. Is that going to affect rollout of robotaxis?
I think that the rollout of robotaxis is actually not dependent on the manufacturing of the next generation vehicle. I do think that the next generation vehicle will be used for the robotaxi platform, but they can turn their current fleet, Tesla's been saying this for a while, that they can turn their current fleet into robotaxis as well. So they could take cars coming off of lease. They removed the option to purchase, for instance, the Model 3 off of lease for that reason. I think so that they can seed their robotaxi network. So I think that this could be started in the next 1 to 2 years is our assumption. We already see robotaxis today from companies like Waymo, which is Google's effort, but it's happening at a very small scale. So I think that Tesla could be the first player to really bring this technology to scale.
Pause there, Nick. This guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Tesla's abandoned their unbox model manufacturing process. There's a lot said there. Which ones do you want to pick apart first?
Yeah, well, I'll touch on your point there. It's comical when you hear these people say these things that are just inaccurate, and it's hard. You got to give some empathy to Tasha, because to go back and correct everything that was said incorrectly, she's not there to teach them. Either you get it or you don't. Either you do your own proper due diligence and research before you speak, or you don't. I mean, even I don't know if you noticed the footage, they're talking about robotaxis and FSD, and they're showing a old Model S that's not even on beta or anything using FSD, and it shows an abrupt stop. It's it's comical, but I think ignore the footage, ignore the reporter, and focus on what Tasha's saying. It's definitely going to be difficult. Elon's been very clear about that. We don't have it solved yet to the point where we can just actually say, hey, we got robotaxis tomorrow. There's an evolution to this, and part of it is going to be building a proprietary robotaxi, but that's not going to be a limiting factor, right? That's not going to be what gates us. What gates us is going to be them getting to a point where they feel confident enough that FSD is feature complete that we can roll it out. Tesla has a bunch of leased vehicles that they still own. They've got us. There's many different approaches and models they can take to rolling out a robotaxi, a pseudo robotaxi, maybe for regulatory approvals or satisfaction or proof of concept before they just go straight robotaxis. And even during the Tesla shareholder meeting, you saw at the very end where they teased a coming soon video with I'm assuming a Tesla employee, this attractive lady calls a robotaxi, walks outside. It's clearly a Model Y, not a robotaxi in design, right? It's not a dedicated robotaxi. It's clearly a Model Y that was hailed, came up. She gets in the back seat and it takes off. So I think that's kind of a little Easter egg that Tesla is sending our way. So I think, listen, the price targets, I understand that the numbers, when you just look at a number, it's like, oh, this is insane. But you can't just look at the price. You have to understand what is feeding into that price. And what's feeding into it is the disruption of transportation. Do you really think that the disruption of transportation, the drop of costs, displacing the way cities are built and designed, how houses maybe don't need garages anymore, the fact that these short, quick plane flights won't be needed anymore, the fact that people will want to drive more because it's just easier, the cost to a person, you don't need a tip, you don't need to have insurance anymore, you don't need to worry about maintenance. It just, the numbers get really kooky. And that's what you see here, but it's not like there's no basis. This is being fed in by a revolutionary disruption. Sorry, you can go ahead and show your numbers.
Yeah, no, okay. So in the annual shareholder meeting, Elon 3 times basically pointed out that you should look at ARK Invest research. I think that they're most accurate. And then even before the annual shareholder meeting, he posted this on X. They've been the most accurate predictors of the value of Tesla and extremely challenging but achievable. He seems to agree with at least some of the research, which is, expected value is $2,600. And then the 25% chance that by 2029, it's going to be, the bear is 2,000. So that's kind of unusual that the bear case of 2020 price is still 2,000. And then the bull case, 25% chance it'll be at 3,100. 50% chance it'll be at 2,600. So this is very, very bullish. But like you say, if you believe in Robotaxi, then these numbers are not crazy. But then they said this, right, which is in the next 2 years, the chances of the first year where Tesla rolls out some sort of Robotaxi commercialization, they think almost 60% chance it'll happen in 2025, almost 40% chance it'll 2026. But the following years, it's like almost zero chance it will take Tesla till 2029 to roll out the first year of Robotaxi commercialization. So that was the question that the reporter asked. Do you think it's going to happen? It's got to have to happen pretty quick before you get to 2029. What do you think about the timeline?
I don't disagree it's subjective. What do you call quick, right? I mean, to me, 4 years is pretty quick, so just to contextualize it, I don't see 4 or 5 years as a long horizon. To me, that's just a stone's throw away. But he's not wrong that, between now and then, we have to see robotaxis. We have to see all these things come out. We have to see the infrastructure built out. We have to have an application. So yeah, we have to do that. But you're seeing us take those steps. It wasn't even 6 months ago when we were sitting there waiting for wide release, and then or maybe that was more like a year ago. So like a year ago for wide release, and then it was about 6 months ago or 5 months ago we were waiting for FSD 12, and then we were talking about like, oh well, it's going to be a big day when we don't have to nag anymore. Now we're about to not have a nag, right? So you're seeing these milestones that we've talked about as a community for so long start to happen. We got Robotaxi Day or 8.8 happening in August. Like, yeah, I agree. It has to happen quick. And take a look. It is happening quick. In 2024 alone, we're going to have FSD 12 end-to-end neural nets for driving. We're going to have no nag, and we're going to have the unveiling of the Robotaxi and whatever else that comes along the way, right? So I would say that's happening pretty fast, if you ask me.
Yeah. So things are moving forward. And so it looks like it could be a longer time frame. Let's listen in again to more of what Tasha Keeney is saying.
Software as a service. It strikes me that going down this whole robotaxi route, which is what Musk seems to want to do, right, does a couple of things, right? It means, you're not thinking of a car, an EV, as a commodity. You're thinking of it as a service. And you're also thinking about volume, that is wholesale sales, not to individual customers, right? Fleet sales, because that's what robotaxis are likely going to mean, yes?
Yes, and first, I'd actually push back that there's more testing happening in China. I think there's a lot of news out of China, and it's very aggressive. It wants to be, electric vehicle autonomy forward, and I think that's the right decision, and that's what the government wants for sure. But actually, the U.S. has been pretty surprisingly lenient when it comes to testing this technology because it's decided at the state level. So, Tesla, for instance, they already have over 1 billion miles cumulatively driven in their full self-driving software. And then on the software as a service model, absolutely. So we picture this being a fleet sales model that could be the end consumer companies could pop up, and this could actually be a profitable business model, particularly for companies today that, actually might have to change what they're doing if they're tied to the traditional gas-powered car ecosystem. That could be an option, or it could be a startup that owns and maintains these fleets. But ultimately, we picture Tesla taking a cut off of per mile revenue, much like Uber does today. But I actually think that they could take a higher cut than Uber does today because one, the underlying cost structure is better, and then I think that if Tesla wholly owns and operates the network and is able to charge Uber and Lyft equivalent prices, again, especially in the early years, we think in the first 50% of all miles that will go to robotaxis, that is where all of the economics will be. So that's why it's so important to be early to scale here.
Tasha, can we circle back to the 56 billion compensation package? And
Okay, let's continue the conversation about Robotaxi. So first, the China comment that he thinks China is way ahead. And then the second, the business model. What's your comment on the China comment?
It goes back to where, I put reporter, newscaster, whatever in quotes. Yeah. If this person would have done their due diligence, they would see that every one of these, attempts at autonomy in China have praised what Tesla and Elon's doing. They've hailed them as the leaders, all of them, right? I mean, it's almost unequivocal. I can't think of one that hasn't at this point. And so for him to say something like that, it's not cogent. It's not intellectually honest. He's just trying to get a headline. And to be frank, you can tell the degree of understanding. I mean, he's sitting there just trying to explain what it means for robotaxi and a SaaS model, and it's such a surface level conversation. They're still stuck on trying to figure out EVs, and we look at EVs at this point like people who smoke cigarettes, and people don't see that yet. We're done with that. We're done with that conversation about EVs. We know that's the way. It's game set match. We know that's the path forward. We're talking about autonomy, and they don't even understand EVs yet, and they're trying to jump into autonomy because it's what Elon's talking about, so it gets clicks and likes and views, but they don't take the time to understand it, and maybe they just can't understand it. Maybe it's just too far out and futuristic and too too aspirational for them to understand. But this is why people who experience FSD, it's the only way they'll truly understand if they're a naysayer is to get in there and use it. I have a really close friend of mine, and I took him for back when we had V10, and it was sketchy. Took V11, it was less sketchy, and then I took him on V12, and now he's asking me about buying a Tesla. He's asking me about investing in Tesla and all this. Now he's like, oh my God, this is the future. Now he sees it. And I would say he's a tech forward person. I mean, he's an engineer. He loves smart home stuff. I mean, he's not a an intellectual person, but even he took all this time to get it. So I don't make much of what people like to say, these reporters. I think Tasha is spot on. And again, if you don't use it, I don't think that it's hard for me to even listen to what anyone says about autonomy if they don't have it.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, China, you're absolutely correct. Every CEO there has praised Elon. The most telling was the Baidu general manager in charge of their autonomy division. Baidu is considered to be the second, the second to Tesla, but some people think that they're actually the leader to everything because they have 200 cars that's been in 7 cities in China, and they plan to go to 2,000 cars this year, but it's all LiDAR. And then why would the general manager say we would love to partner with Tesla beyond maps, like as in use Tesla's Robotaxi, because they know that this was very limited. So the good step there. And then the comment about people need to try it. I have my own story of a very close friend of mine who told me it'll never happen in my lifetime. And then now, after testing it out for himself, he's now saying, oh, it's definitely going to happen. And I was like, 2 years ago, you said it'll never happen in your lifetime. Do you remember that?
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that with that reporter, I would say that's him not doing proper research, and it's an intellectually dishonest way he frames things. But I will concede that there are some people that they just struggle to see, right? I mean, I don't want to take it for granted. I think people like you and me, Herbert, we're kind of cut a little differently. We are more comfortable with what people call risk, but we don't see it as risk because we see where things are going. I mean, it's funny, yes, I'm younger than you, but we have a very similar story where I went all in on Apple, then I went all in on Amazon, and now I'm all in on Tesla. And it's like it wasn't by design. It's just, I saw it and it seemed so obvious, and it took time. None of it happened overnight, but so some people can't see it. Some people have struggle believing in it, and it's sad, but so I'm not, I'll concede that there are people like that, but this was not one of those situations. This is someone who it's their job to study and know what they're talking about, and you just don't see that. So it's patently false what he's saying, and it's FUD.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think he's purposely doing it. Like you said, he just have surface level knowledge. So what I think about ARK Invest is that their stock price, they were right one time, but they were wrong for the reason why it was going to go up. They were thinking it's going to be Robotaxi. So I think that it's fair for people to say, hey, criticize them for the stock price. But I don't think it's fair to criticize them for their research, because like you and I have been saying this whole show, you specifically, is that, they study it. They know the competition. They know to the detail what the Uber and Lyft make, how many miles you need to do, what kind of cars, how would you roll this out, those kind of things. So that part, when she started talking about the business model, she's got like that part is her decision on her choices, ARK Invest, is much closer than somebody who doesn't know the details, miles per, ride and all that. So they showed this, that if by 2029, based on Tesla, the green is the Robotaxi revenue or earnings or enterprise level is the business line will be 88% of Tesla's business will basically be Robotaxi as it's compared to the revenue that Tesla currently gets with electric vehicles by 2029. So basically they're saying that Robotaxi, if it works, is going to eventually dwarf what the electric vehicle business is, about 9-1, which is about what Elon says. So he's kind of agreeing with this number. So if it works, what do you think about the business model and these numbers that you see here?
Yeah, I don't think they're off. I mean, I sit here, we were talking earlier about how I just sit here and live on the calculator, right? I'm constantly sitting here crunching numbers. And, I just constantly go to 10 million Robotaxis. What does that look like? What are the economics of that? Well, if you take 10 million Robotaxis and you assume, I think average Uber driver does about 200 miles a day, say it's $1 a mile, say that, half those miles you don't actually pay for. And let's say that half of that $1 a mile goes to the owner of the vehicle, maybe not Tesla. And you do those miles, you do 365 days, and you put I don't know, say it's 50% margins on it, put a 20, 30, 40 PE, whatever you want on it, and you get to these numbers. Like it's not insane. And that's only with 10 million. I'm not saying only 10 million, like it's not a lot, but it's only 10 million, and eventually, I mean, Tesla's making, call it 2 million a year now, right? So, okay, let's say they get very conservatively say they get to build, 4 or 5 million vehicles a year by 2030. That's extremely conservative. Right. It's not like it's hard to get to 10 million, right? Like it's going to happen very quickly. And then the next year they'll have more, and the next year they'll have more. And so not only will they be able to drive the cost down and grow their TAM, but they're also going to make even more revenue. And the margins will be higher than what I'm even projecting. So the numbers are not insane at all. If you just sit there, play with the calculator a little bit, put your own assumptions into it, it's actually really reasonable. Now, what's the big question mark? When will this be solved? When will the network be out there? Like that, it's all caveat on that. And they're very transparent. They say that. They're very clear about it. This assumes that we get robotaxis. So I think the numbers are extremely fair.
Okay. And then the 2 years, you agree with that statistics that they put out? 58% chance that's going to happen next year, and 38% chance the following year?
Yeah, if anything, I'm probably a little more optimistic. I think it's probably I think something this year kind of maybe gets a light announcement. I'm not saying 8/8 it happens, but maybe saying something like, at the end, last quarter or maybe early next year, we'll have like a soft launch. And I think something definitely happens next year. Like I would put it at like 95%.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And then one of the things that they did say that was very interesting was they said that the partnership. So if Tesla announces a partnership with a third, large automaker who's going to license FSD from them, that even if they do, they don't expect it to have any bottom line impact to Tesla's revenue, earnings, or value for 5 years, because it'll take that company at least 3 years to even implement in the first place. What's your thought on that?
I agree if it's a Western OEM. I don't agree if it's like BYD, so I think
good point.
Yeah, there's some nuance there, but if you're looking at any Western auto manufacturers, then I would agree.
Gotcha. So the research by ARK Invest, you're pretty well in line. With their stock price, their, the way that you've seen the way that they think they're going to charge for this, the way they'll roll it out. Do you agree? Like they think, for example, that's winner take most, that the first one that comes out with the most out there will be able to drive the cost down, that they'll take most. Just like they said, Uber is pretty well winner take most. Even though Lyft basically copies them to the T, they can't get past 15% market share.
Yeah, I think Robotaxi will be winner take vast majority. I think humanoids will be the same way. I think launches to orbit will be the same way. At least for the first 10 years. I just, it's not that I don't think that other companies can survive. It's just when you're competing against Tesla and they're the first to market, it's not just about building something. It's got to be at least as good. Not just quality and reliability, but the way it feels, the way it works, the experience, your interface with it. Many people can make electric vehicles now. That's not challenging, but the second they try to just charge, it's a horrible experience. If I just want to play my music, or you remember Sandy Monroe trying to connect to Bluetooth, it was impossible. Finding the maps, it's like these are I hate to say it, but this is what we're competing against. So I just think Elon underestimates by being too optimistic at time with timelines. But I would say where most people hypocritically, because they, like to clown on Elon, they underestimate the lead that Elon Musk has on everybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Competition is coming.
Yeah. So you and I just did a live stream, and then there you were saying that at the annual general shareholder meeting, at the very end, that was the thing that got you most excited, because they showed a demo of the Robotaxi experience, with the app and a person walking into the car, and you think that that's like the next thing, right? It's like they wouldn't have done that if they're kind of teasing, they're kind of excited about 8.8, right? They'll announce something there. What was your comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's, they're, if you look at their deck, they're storytelling. And Elon even said to begin with, we're going to talk about what we've done, where we've come, and then what's next. And they ended it with that, 30-second commercial of this lady getting into the vehicle, or calling the vehicle. She gets into it and it goes off. And, with 8.8, days away, and them leaking, or not leaking, but putting the renderings of the app into the share deck when everybody was saying, oh, it's just renderings, it's not real. Mm-hmm. And then they've given us like little clips of someone using the app. We saw it kind of teased in one of those, Go Vote commercials. And then now at the end, they show us a bigger clip of this commercial. Look, they're clearly ramping up to show us something. And you don't just have an app. You don't just show that. You don't have a Robotaxi day 8.8 unless like you got stuff, right? So I think they're coming to show us stuff. What? I don't know. And again, I'm not claiming that on 8.9 we have a network and it's all done and life's great and we're a $10 trillion company, but we see these progressive steps that we have to take to get to it. We saw FSD 12 come out. We saw Y release happen. We're seeing the NAG go away. Now we need an app. Now we need an actual Robotaxi. And I'm hoping that, at the event, Elon kind of lays out how they see this rolling out and how it's going to work. And I'm extremely bullish on this. And if for no other reason, I could have not seen any of that. Just my everyday experience with FSD would be enough to make me feel this confident.
Okay. I love it, Nick. Thank you so much. That's great. So obviously ARK Invest, we agree with the research. Not sure yet about the stock price per se, but if it works.
Never know. We never know.
It's a possibility.
We're about the technology, and everything else will happen when it happens. But if the technology happens and you're focused on that, the money follows.
It's going to follow, and crazy things will follow, because this is a completely different business model, recurring revenue, high margin. It'll take over cars. Like nobody will need to buy a car. Well, it become less and less over years. Thank you so much, Nick. That was fun. I appreciate you reviewing Tasha Keeney, ARK Invest, and get your thoughts on that. So check him out on his YouTube channel at Investing Against the Grain. You can see that he does things a little differently than everyone else. He has a different mindset, different philosophy. And it's great to hear your thinking, because it does always make me stop and think. And I told you in another show that sometimes I hear you and I change my mind. Like, damn it, I got to stop and think of what you just said. Makes sense.
Hey,
thank you so much.
I feel the same way about you, man. I feel the same way about you. So it's great being friends.
Thanks, buddy. See you soon.
Cheers.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.